Hey guys, and in today's video we're going to be discussing how to do a service on one of these compact tractors. Pretty much consult your owner's manual if you have one. If not, I'm sure it's online on a PDF. You can go and open it up. Just check your hourly service of when you need to change your filters, fluids, grease it, etc. So first step, of course, is opening up your hood and getting in here. And if you have a loader tractor, pretty much the safest thing to do is to have it on the ground. Don't ever have it up in the air. Hydraulic cylinders can and will fail. In this case, I went ahead and already changed these filters. There's a primary big filter and a small secondary filter. These pretty much only need to be changed after, I think it's every six blow-offs with the air gun, which you're only supposed to use 30 psi or less on them. That's iffy. I think like 90% of shops don't do that. But really, I would just change these once they start getting packed. It's just preventative maintenance. It's easy to do. It's cheaper than buying a motor is what I like to say. Same with changing the engine oil and fuel filters, really. So to get to it, you have to loosen this guy, which basically just entails pushing him back and sliding him out of the way. This bellows here allows it to move. You have 3 flip tabs you pull off there. There's one here, and one here. Then basically you loosen those guys. You take this rubber band clamp off here, which I take it from this side. You can stretch it, pulls off, you lay it back. You can tilt this up, pull your cap off, you pull your filters out. It is good practice as well to write the date and the hours of when you changed it. Now secondly, you're going to notice that the reservoir is a little bit empty, so we're going to go ahead and dump a little bit of coolant in here before long as well. Most of the time, if you're checking on your batteries, you really don't have much to do in the way of maintenance. Basically, it's just pull the terminals off, make sure they're clean. These guys are actually pretty good for what they are, for that being this old. This is the second battery this tractor's ever had, and of course it's not a Deere battery, but batteries are batteries. I mean, most of the time they come from the same 4 or 5 factories anyways. Just go buy a solid brand you like and put her in there. Most of the time you're not really ever going to have any issues with them. Next thing on my list is I'm going to go ahead and change fuel filter. The fuel filter has a hand primer up here, and it has a lock and unlock decals on the side of it. And what you're going to do is there's also a lock and unlock symbol on the filter base here. Basically, you're just going to twist it left or right depending on what you're doing. And if you're going for unlocking, you're going to twist her this way. This unlock symbol has to match that one, and it'll drop off. All you're going to do is the same thing with the air filters. Just drop it, put it in, dispose of it. Depending on the engine, which in this case, I would pre-fill it with diesel. But depending on the engine, most of the time, you don't really have to pre-fill your filters. That's a debatable item, but most John Deere filters, especially on the bigger tractors, they have a do not pre-fill on the filter. So it just depends. In this one, I probably would, but that's optional on what you want to do with it. And of course, as I said, you just twist her to where it says unlock, reach in there. You should be able to pull down on it. Yes, you're going to make a mess. Get you a 5-gallon bucket preferably and put it underneath it. Or if you just got some sort of container, and then drain her out. Okay, so once we got her set there, pretty well all you gotta do now is sit here and prime this guy until you feel a bunch of resistance. Like right there, I can't really push it. You're gonna go until you feel a bunch of resistance, and then try to keep pumping for, I don't know, another 10-20 seconds after that, just to make sure you're getting all the air pushed out, because see, it just got easier for me. There's a little bit of air in there. If you do prime these, prime them for a little bit. Don't just hop up on the tractor and turn the key. You're going to have to get the air out of it, or you'll have your typical 4024T engine issues with these things. They get air trapped in there, and it's really hard to get out. So now we go ahead and start the tractor. Leave it at a low idle. And that's why you leave it in a low idle. You don't touch it. You let it get the air out first. And then usually what I do after that is I'll let it sit and run for about a minute or two and just let the air finish getting out of it, which it should be out theoretically by now, but it's just to make sure the air's out of it for sure. So next time you go to start it, it doesn't hiccup or, well, not start. Then you're kind of pumping on this guy and wishing you would have just finished it the first time. And of course, for ending performance, at least for basic maintenance, is the oil change. Ooh, that one might not be big enough. That's what she said. Yep, too small. She definitely said that. Now, of course, most of you might not have this, but it's 1 1/16 for the drain plug, or adjustable hammer to whatever size you want it to be. So just go ahead and pull out your drain plug, which has an O-ring on it. So if you do get an oil change, get the O-ring. I don't have one, so we're just going to send it and see if it leaks. Most of the time they don't, but I would still get one new regardless. It's like a 10-cent O-ring, just get it. So I'm going to let that drain for another minute or two because the oil's good and warm, which, by the way, forgot to mention this, start and run the tractor for about 5-10 minutes at minimum to get at least the sludge and all the stuff at the bottom. Just get all nice and mixed up so when you drain it, it all comes out at once. Get you an oil filter wrench, or if you're lucky, it should be on there by hand, and it's not, as most aren't. You go ahead and get you an oil filter wrench, just go nice and slow, and away she goes. Just don't go as far as that and let it drip on the floor. So, yeah, don't do that. Get the bot right there. And there's probably going to be anywhere from a pint to a quart, probably a quart, roughly, of fluid in there, which is why they gave you this nice little convenient ramp underneath it, which is what I wish they would do on most of the Deere motors. That'd be nice. Just a quick comparison, make sure the bases are the same because sometimes they're not accurate. Get you a little something to lube up the O-ring in here. People will also debate that, and just from personal experience and preference, just lube it with something. Doesn't matter what it is, even if it's grease. Just something that's not water. Lube it with something so you can put it on and take it off by hand next time. And then, of course, spin it on. Make sure it's not cross-threaded. It should spin real easy. And then my rule of thumb is go hand tight with one hand. So in this case, this engine right here takes right at 1.9 gallons via the online service book. And of course, I went ahead and bought a 2.5 gallon thing of Deere's engine fluid, oil, and why I call it engine fluid, plus 50, 1540. I got that at a discount, so hence why I even got it. Then go ahead and get your funnel of choice and pour. And then, of course, since you don't really have a specific way of checking it, go ahead and poke your dick stick in there and take you a read on her. In this case, we don't have anywhere near enough. So we're okay to put it back in because there's no reading on it. And keep filling. Now let's go ahead and start the tractor. After you've got it filled to an appropriate level, your oil pressure light, which is the far right blinking one, will come on for a couple seconds until it primes up. Which I may or may not have cheated already started it. I forgot to film it, so whoops. We'll basically just let it run for, I don't know, a minimum 10 seconds. However long you want to after that. But that's probably good enough there. And then pull out the dipstick. Use two hands is what I usually like to do to wipe it off. But we're not going to because I'm holding a camera. Pop her in there after you've wiped her off and recheck. And in this case, I need to add. Which, after you've just run the tractor, it's going to be a little lower than usual. But other than that, you're pretty squared away. As for the hydraulic system maintenance, I'm not going to do this because this tractor only has 1,600 hours on it. You're supposed to change it at 1,500, and it's actually been changed, I think, twice before because he just wanted to, which personally I fully agree with, because since this is a hydrostatic transmission and everything else on this is hydraulically controlled, I would go ahead and do that because meticulous maintenance on the hydraulic system will save you thousands of dollars later down the road. It's the same as the engine. I mean, anything that has a fluid in it, change it if you can. It has a filter, change it. It costs less to go ahead and put a filter on it and fluid in it versus changing the actual object like the engine or the transmission or the charge pump or hell, even the cylinders on these can get scored up or damaged from junk in there, and everything else could be fine. The hydraulic systems are so finicky, weird stuff just happens when you get debris in there. So the less you can do that and get debris in there, the better off you're going to be. Changing the hydraulic fluid is really easy. As a drain plug, you dump it out, take your filter off, change it, fill your hydraulic fluid back up, And the way I usually bleed the systems on, if I ever have a hydro tractor, I will start it up and let it run for probably a minute or so, rev it up to about 1400, and this is pretty much with every tractor. Throw it in neutral, especially if it's a hydro, push the pedal a little bit, you know, forward and reverse, get the fluid everywhere it needs to go, and then I will cycle all the cylinders. So loader, 3-point, steering, everything that's got a cylinder, everything that's hydraulic is going to get moved, get the air out of the system. So then when you go to check it, which there is a dipstick that is yellow right back here above your PTO underneath your left lift arm, pull that guy out. It's just like your engine oil. Is he above the add mark? Actually, so you see the X's there, that's where it should be. Check cold is what it says on there as well, which, truth be told, it doesn't really matter, but just do what the dipstick says. Not this dipstick, that dipstick.